by only 19 total points in those 4 games. Tonight, however, for Carolina, there is no room for error. Due to that loss 2 weeks ago, the Heels can ill afford another conference defeat this early in the season. So, there is no time like the present for the Heels to crack the code of the Cavaliers and pick up an enormous division win.
People are asking about the pressure and the hype. We're just on a roll. Things are good, and I'm excited about it.
I mean, we're all holding ourselves now to a super high standard.
We've got the leadership.
We prepare the same way for every team. No game is bigger than others.
We've got the confidence.
I feel like now nobody can stay with me, and it just rolls into practice.
If you're seeing it in practice, it's going to show up in the game.
I embrace the challenge, honestly.
I just know I got to keep on going.
I'm coming down, making plays.
Anticipate things more.
It's only going to keep getting better.
We're going to be good every year. That's just who we are. That's our program.
This is Carolina football.
Coffrey off to the races, and they will not catch him. Touchdown, Carolina. Howe, first down and more. Howe to the 5, Howe to the end zone. 40, 35, 30. Tar Heels will have it inside the Deacon 15. 25, 20, 10-5. Trucks over a defender. Goodness gracious. 50, 10, 5. Give him 6 more. Holy smokes. Light that bell tower blue.
Let's go.
Blue.
Let's go.
This is Jones Angell. Do you like high-quality quarterback play? Well, last week, Carolina's Sam Howell and Virginia's Brennan Armstrong combined for 892 yards of offense and 10 total touchdowns. 2 of the best signal callers in the ACC meet tonight in Chapel Hill. Brian Simmons was a 2-time All-America at Carolina, has his jersey honored at UNC, and played a decade in the NFL.
And yes, I do like high-quality quarterback play, but what excites me tonight is good defense. Surprise, surprise.
Lee Pace authors extra points and will be reporting from the hopefully a little less humid sidelines this evening.
The Tar Heels are ranked number 21 in the media poll, 19th in the coaches. Virginia is nowhere to be found. Vegas odds makers put the Tar Heels just over a touchdown favorite. On paper, then, Carolina certainly has the edge, but it sure doesn't feel that way, judging each team for its first 2 games and the mood around the Tar Heel fan base this week. Well, let's see if the Tar Heels can go out and prove that edge tonight.
We have all those storylines to talk about, plus we're going to have interviews with the 2 head coaches, Mac Brown and Bronco Mendenhall. We'll continue our weekly pregame conversations with Tar Heel great Jeff Saturday. Going to talk to another Carolina great, Ronald Curry, former Tar Heel quarterback. Plus, we'll check on scores from a busy ACC and top 25. All of that and much more. It's the oldest rivalry in the South, Virginia at Carolina, and the Reeves Jewelers pregame show from Learfield.
athletics. This is the Reed's Jewelers pregame show.
A bit hot and steamy here in Chapel Hill as we get a little closer to the kickoff between Carolina and Virginia. How you doing? Jones Angell, Brian Simmons, Lee Pace. We are inside the Reed's Jewelers pregame show, brought to you by Reed's Jewelers, your hometown jeweler, trusted for generations. So glad you decided to join us. This is a big one tonight between the Heels and the Who's. And Brian, Carolina is hosting Virginia this evening, and just the third game of the season, of course, for both teams, but man, it just feels like one of the bigger games, not just of this year, but of the Mac Brown 2.0 era in Chapel Hill to this point.
Yeah, and if you're Carolina, anytime you play a Coastal Division opponent, it's a big game because it's really like two games. If you beat them, obviously you get the win and then they get the loss, so that's worth two games really. And for Carolina, you can't start the season out with 0-2 in your Coastal Division, even though everything you could argue may still be in front of them. But that's just a bad taste in your mouth if you start the season 0-2 against ACC opponents and both are in your division.
And, Brian, you know, Virginia was quite the thorn in the side of Mac Brown when he came to Carolina the first time. Tar Heels lost 4 in a row from 88 to 91, finally got over the hump in 92. And Coach Brown talked about it this week that you end streaks. Carolina losing 4 in a row to Virginia. You end streaks when you're good enough, number one, and you just get tired of hearing about it and you do something about it. Carolina wasn't quite good enough 2 years ago to tackle Bryce Perkins. They weren't quite good enough last year to snuff down a fourth down fake punt that they knew was coming. So we'll find out tonight if Carolina is maybe a little better in all three phases.
Yeah, Mac Brown, for whatever reason, I mean, Virginia has just been a tough one for someone who has accomplished so much. Coach Brown just 3-9 in 12 games against Virginia in his career. Sam Howell put up enormous numbers last week, and some of them, like that 352 yards passing and 3 passing touchdowns, we've seen those plenty of times and lucky to be able to see those. Others, like the 104 yards rushing and 2 rushing scores, now those are additions to his already impressive arsenal.
Well, no Javonte Williams, no Michael Carter. Somebody had to pick up the slack in the running game, and it's just come from a rather surprising source. Jones has been a combination of called quarterback runs, option keepers, and pure scrambling. And, boy, how about that beauty of a 62-yard run by Sam last Saturday night, also at 22 yards score. He's done a lot over the offseason as he did the previous offseason just to work on his mobility and flexibility, and it's come along and it's paying off in spades. Although Coach Brown does say he wish he would slide and hit the deck a little bit sooner, not take quite so many hits.
And Brian, I mean, not every run is equal, right? If it's 2nd and 8 and you get 6 yards and you're about to get hit, get down. If it's 4th and 3, maybe you take a little bump and you try to move the chains. You want Sam to be aggressive. You don't want him to think too much. You just don't want him to be reckless.
No, you don't. But listen, the same thing you complain about is part of the reason why you love him. Yeah. And he's a tough kid. So it's hard as a competitor to say get down when in the moment he's trying to get that extra yards. And you understand that. But like you said, every down and every yard that you have to be smart and you have to make sure. Because right now the most important thing for this team is for Sam to be out there. Right. And he has to do everything that he can do within staying true to himself as who he is as a player to make sure that he can be out there for his team. And he's done a great job. And listen, I don't think any defense is going to the game necessarily planning for Sam to run, but he's shown enough that now you have to kind of worry about that.
And you need some other guys to step up. And it was great last week, Jones, to see 4 tight ends catch 7 balls, including Kamari Morales with 4, and also to see Antoine Green and Emory Simmons go up and pull down the contested balls.
Brian, last week on the other side of the ball, Georgia State had that one long drive against the Tar Heel regulars. It was 17 plays, 75 yards, and a touchdown. Other than that drive, though, against the Tar Heel first and second team players, the Panthers gained just 106 yards on 35 plays and scored 3 points, and that was on a short field after a turnover. It was another impressive outing from the Tar Heel D.
Yeah, and they've been solid. I mean, to go up to Virginia Tech and only give up 17 points, give yourself a chance to win a football game. And last week, that one drive was kind of a head-scratcher because it kind of came out of nowhere. And then after that drive, there was nothing left. So, tonight, you can't give up that type of drive because I think it's going to be that type of game. I think this game is going to be won on the defensive side of the ball. One of these teams are going to have to make a key stop, a key turnover to win the football game tonight. And that's about being consistent, and you can't give up those mental errors, especially early on as they did at Virginia Tech. because every play tonight is going to be important because I think these teams are that closely matched.
Tar Heels have been really impressive in the secondary too, Jones. They're ranked number 11th in the nation in allowing only 130 yards per game. Problem is, they've only had 2 sacks in 2 games. That's something Tar Heels coaches and players have talked a lot about this week.
A lot going on personnel-wise in the secondary as well. Unfortunately, Day Hollins out for the remainder of the year after his injury last week against Georgia State, a lower body injury. He's done for the season. Jaquarius Conley left the game last week, came back in with his left hand wrapped. He is expected to play tonight, expected to start. In fact, Coach Brown said he tried to get Conley off some special teams, and Conley wouldn't do it. He said he wanted to stay out there and stay in all the action. In fact, he even blocked a punt in practice this week with his taped up hand. So Mac Brown has been very heavy in his praise about Jaquarius Conley. And we're going to keep an eye when Lee goes down for the field report. We're going to be looking for Storm Duck. He's been getting closer and closer to being ready to play, and particularly with the Hollins injury, it'll be important to see if Duck is out there and ready to go this week for Carolina. Lee, quickly to wrap things up, talking about personnel, it'll be important to watch Carolina's offensive line in this game, both in its performance, but also which players are available. The Tar Heels just have not yet had the anticipated starting 5 of Richards, Izudu, Anderson, McKeithen, and Tucker together for a full game.
Brian Anderson is the heart and soul of that O-line. He's the leader. He's the smart guy out there. He gets them in the right calls and the right positions. Missed the first game, came back, did play against Georgia State. Hopefully he will be back to 100% tonight. We're going to have to see about Joshua Izudu, who is ostensibly the best athlete on that offensive line, and he did not play at all last week. He did not dress out. We'll have to get a look down there on the field in about half hour as to whether he's there and who else is there for the O-line.
Well, Carolina has some challenges. It's trying to get better, and it's going to try and do so against a really good team in Virginia. The Cavaliers have started this season hot. We'll take a closer look at the opponent tonight when we return to the Reed's Jewelers pregame show from Learfield.
Yeah. Weezy, back home smoking legal. I got more slaps than the Beatles. Running on diesel, dog.
And he will trot into the end zone. Touchdown, Tar Heels, and it's Sam Howell.
Trust me,
Howell go deep to the goal line. Antoine Green on the business end.
You gotta show me. You gotta bring the clip back empties. You asked to see the ball, so they see.
Carolina Blue Wave, led by Miles Murphy.
There ain't nothing, I'm just being friendly, dog. All day, yeah, a lot of murk, caught me in a hard way. Got a sticky in it, keep it at my dog's place. Girl, I left you loving magic, not all shade. Still going bad on you anyway.
Simmons to the end zone.
I can feel like 80 rats in my Marys. Me and Drizzy back to back is getting scary. If you fucking with my eyes, just don't come near me. Put some bands all on your head like Jason Terry. Whoa. Rich and Millie cuss a Lambo. Known to keep the better on commando. Every time I'm in my trap, I move like Rambo. Ain't a neighborhood in Philly.
Reaching out at a touchdown.
For real. She said, oh, you rich.
Chandler, he's got the room. Trying to break away. Down the sideline. Sam Howell.
That's the only thing I want for Christmas.
Steamy. We referenced that here in Kenan. It's been a little bit of a cloudy day, kind of half sun, half clouds. There's some rain showers a couple hours ago. Those have all cleared out. Clear night now, but still a little sticky as we count down to kickoff here. Get you ready for Carolina and Virginia. 126th meeting. Only one series across the country has been played more. That's Minnesota and Wisconsin. Those two teams have played 129 times. It's the Reed's Jewelers pregame show. You can also watch us, Carolina Football Field Pass, if you're in a position to do so, on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. Come hang out in the booth with us as we move through the pregame show. And our game sponsor today, the Independent Insurance Agents of North Carolina and the Trusted Choice Independent Insurance Agents of North Carolina, want you to stay safe behind the wheel. Put down your phone while you're driving, and let's have a hands-free NC. All right, let's take a look at the opponent, Virginia. Cavaliers just now coming out of the northeast corner. About, not even 20% of their team coming out. Some specialists going to start getting loose. Virginia wearing the all-white today. White helmets, white jerseys, white pants. Numbers are in dark navy blue. They have on their helmet one side the V-Saber logo, the other side the number of the player. A lot of navy blue and orange mixed in the trim of the uniforms. Meanwhile, Tar Heels going with those Brian Simmons era, mid to late 90s throwbacks. Really good-looking uniforms. Carolina blue helmet, Carolina blue tops, white pants with those big, thick navy blue and white stripes on the arm portion of the jersey. Big, thick Carolina blue and navy stripes down the side of the pants as well. All right, let's talk about Virginia. And, Brian, 2 weeks, Virginia has outscored William & Mary and Illinois 85-14. That's not the Chiefs and the 49ers or something, but, hey, you beat two teams 85-14, you're doing something right.
They're averaging 42 points a game and only giving up 7. So last time I checked, that's a great recipe to win football games. They're playing really good on defense. They're stingy against the run. They're going to cause problems up front with just all their movement, their pre-snap movement, their post-snap movement, and that's going to be the key for Carolina tonight on an offensive standpoint. Understanding and identifying the mic, picking up those blitzes, and getting a helmet on guys and getting some movement in the run game. I think that's going to be really important. If Carolina can't run the ball effective tonight, it's going to be a long day. Not saying that they can't win that way, but it's just going to make it that much harder. So it'll be interesting to see how Carolina comes back, because they didn't run the football as well as you would like for them to have last week. If you take out Sam's number, They were very average. So to me, that is what I'm looking for in terms of Carolina offense, and it's going to be a necessity.
Carolina's running backs last week, 28 carries for just 96 yards in the game. It's about 3.5 yards per carry. Last year in Charlottesville, Virginia had 210 yards rushing. Carolina had 93, and that was with the great rushing attack that Carolina had a season ago. Lee, through 2 weeks, you could make the argument that Virginia quarterback Brennan Armstrong has been the best quarterback in the ACC in these 2 games. He has completed better than 71% of his passes. He's thrown for 744 yards, accounted for 9 total touchdowns and just 1 interception.
Jonesy wears number 5. He's a fiery redhead lefty, so there's nothing typical about him. Bronco Mendenhall says he's the type kid that in pickup games, whether it's tag football, pickup basketball, tiddlywinks, or whatever, he's going to be the first guy picked, and his team is probably going to win. He scrambles. He makes the tough throws. Last year against the Tar Heels, he was 12 for 22 for 3 touchdowns. So we know about him. We know how good he is. What's going to be new this year is big number 0. Jelani Woods, 6'7", tight end, a transfer from Oklahoma State, and he is a beast, Jones.
Yeah, he's coming off a game last week in the win against Illinois where he had 5 catches and 122 yards and a touchdown. It was the most for a Virginia tight end yard-wise since 2005. So, I mean, he is just a huge man there at the tight end position. He wears, I think Lee said this, number 0, and he said he chose it because that's how many people he thinks can guard him when he's out ready to receive a pass. So he's a big dude, somebody that Carolina has to be aware of this evening. Brian, you referenced this a little bit in your first comment, but Virginia really prides itself on multiplicity, both offensively and defensively. Carolina's going to be dealing with just a high volume of personnel groupings and unique formations tonight.
Yeah, let's start with their defense. You're going to have to be able to block a 4-man front as well as a 3-man front. You know they're going to bring inside pressure with the inside linebackers. They're going to bring nickel pressure. They're going to bring corner pressure. They like a lot of movement up front, whether it's sliding to it before the snap or either moving with stunts and games after the snap. So Carolina's going to have to be able to block all that up on offense. And then then if you look at UVA's offense, I mean, they're the master of it. They're going to give you a lot of shifts, a lot of motions. They're They just do a lot of stuff to try to create a lot of stresses for the defense pre-snap. Once the ball is snapped, they do pretty much the same thing. It's just a matter of how they get to it. Go ahead.
I was going to say, they've already had 5 different guys throw a pass this year. I mean, so they throw so many different looks at you with what they're doing.
And part of that is they want you to have to spend time during the week preparing for all that. Because if you have to prepare for X, Y, and Z, you can't spend as much time as you would like on their bread and butter A, B, and C. And that's why they do it.
So, big challenge tonight for Carolina. Lee referenced this in his opening comment. You know, Tar Heels are a favorite in this game, and Carolina's the ranked team. But it just when you look at how these two teams have played to this point, Virginia has really been impressive. Carolina will need its best performance of this young season to have a chance to win tonight. Phil Longo said he thought this was the most talented opponent that Carolina has seen so far early in this year as well.
You know, the Tar Heels want to exercise those 4 losses to Virginia and that opening game to Virginia Tech. Meanwhile, Virginia is trying to exercise its own Demon Jones. They're only 6-20 on the road under Bronco Mendenhall, and they feel like they hadn't played well on the road, so they've got a big game tonight as well.
One bad part about that stat, 2 of those 6 wins that they've gotten have been right here in Chapel Hill. So this has been the one place on the road under Bronco Mendenhall where they've had some success here in Duke, and everywhere else they've really, really struggled. So Carolina will try and protect the home field tonight in an important game against the Cavaliers. We're going to take a timeout, come back. You'll hear from Jeff Saturday, Ronald Curry coming soon, all kinds of great stuff for you when we return to Kenan. Carolina, Virginia, and Chapel Hill tonight from Learfield.
How are you, the ultimate UNC fan?
Dave Nathan welcoming you back to Chapel Hill and Kenan Stadium as the sun begins to set just in front of 7 o'clock. Our pregame show is brought to you by Reach Jewelers. The official Reach Jewelers kickoff time is 7:40. Reach Jewelers, your home for fine Swiss timepieces, beautiful diamonds, and the world's most luxurious jewelry brands. That's Reach Jewelers, trusted with life's moments. Before we head over to Jones and Jeff Saturday, let's pause 10 seconds for a station ID on the Tar Heel Sports Network.
Man, always have a great time here as we move through the Reese Jewelers pregame show, getting you ready for Carolina's up. Man, always have a great time here as we move through the Reed's Jewelers pregame show, getting you ready for Carolina's upcoming opponent. In this case, it's Virginia, and we always have a wonderful time talking to Jeff Saturday, helping us break things down. Jeff, great to talk with you again. And, you know, if you look at last week's game, it looks pretty, 59-17, more than 600 yards of offense. A lot of guys played. There's a lot to like there for the Tar Heels, and yet there's also some very clear areas that the Tar Heels need to improve. How beneficial, though, is it to get a nice win? You're feeling good. Lots of guys played, but then you can turn on that tape and say, all right, guys, here's a couple things that we really need to get better in.
Yeah, I'm not sure there's a better Sunday/Monday than when you know you didn't play your best and you still put up all the numbers and won by a huge margin, right? Like those are the good days, Jones. Like you get up in there, you're like, yeah, I'm going to take some lumps, but at least I'm taking them in the win category. And so that's exactly what Mac and the entire staff felt like, is that ultimately we left a lot on the bone and still came away with a victory like that. You'll teach the guys who got in. You're hoping that helps us for the longevity of this season, that whenever they have to come in and spell guys or possible injury or whatever, that now they have that they've kind of learned some lessons. And so to your point, I think these honestly are the greatest days when you come off that, and especially for a game like tonight. The ability to kind of get healthy, get guys a little fresh, not play the entire fourth quarter, hoping that plays benefits in warm nights early in the season.
So I don't think Carolina has run the ball as effectively, and I'll use the term, in the traditional run game as much as it would like to here early in the season. And this is kind of a two-part question, Jeff. One, how can the Tar Heels be more effective, in your opinion, running the ball? And then secondarily, how big of a weapon can Sam Howell running the football from the quarterback position be, with that caveat of, please, Sam, be smart and slide when it's time to slide out there on the field?
No, you're 100% right. So here's my thoughts on run game for Carolina. Right, is everything has been built off of Sam here in the past. Right, you lose two not just good but special running backs to the NFL. You lose receivers to the NFL. Right, so you've lost a significant portion of your offense. So the timing of our offense and the passing game probably has dominated most of your practice. The one thing I would say is, with all the RPOs that we run, there is a time for call it and run it. And what I mean by that is, when you just line up, and it doesn't matter what defense they give, you are going to go run downhill at this group. I mean, you're going to try to impose your will on their will and physically fatigue and beat up that defensive front seven. I think a lot of times with RPO, and this is not just for our offense, but for all who run it, is it gets kind of cute, right? You're always reading that backside. You're always seeing if Sam can pull it, maybe grab a couple yards. Well, there's a lot to say for, 4-yard body blows as a game progresses and how those mount up when you get into the fourth quarter. And so as I'm looking at it, especially with with new running backs, who to your point of the run game, sometimes we're not blocking it well, sometimes we're not running it well. So everybody's kind of taking turns, but I think the more they work together, the better everybody will be. And as far as Sam, man, I could not agree with you more. Like, it is a tremendous weapon, not only at this level, but you're seeing it progress up into the NFL. But man, you got to get down. Like, you cannot take unnecessary shots. And when in doubt, live to play the next play. Like I love that extra 5 yards, not from my quarterback. I want that from my running back, for my receivers and tight ends. I don't want that from my QB. Wherever you think first contact is coming, bro, unless it's the last play of the game, get down and let's live to play the next play. And so, but honestly, I'll be honest with you, gentlemen, this is a huge game tonight. I mean, look, like, from a recruiting perspective, you want to win this, right? Coastal perspective, you got to win this. So there's a lot on the line for us. Here's the best part. When you're playing somebody you don't like, and let me tell you, if you're a heel, you don't like the Cavs. So you don't like this group. There's a lot at stake. There's a lot of fun. It just puts more emphasis on how you play, and it gets you that little extra bit of motivation, man, to be able to kind of rub it in somebody's face for those recruiting wars. So really excited about tonight, man. Huge game, and can't wait to see us take this thing on.
This is the Reed's Jewelers pregame show.
Every sack is a sack to give back. For every sack the Tar Heels make this season, Food Lion Feeds will donate 1,000 meals to feed our neighbors in need right here in the Triangle. It is the South's oldest rivalry. It's the Tar Heels and Cavaliers, and tough to think about this matchup without thinking about the great Ron Curry, who was a decorated two-sport star coming out of high school in Virginia back in the late 1990s. While he played both football and basketball for the Tar Heels, his arrival to Chapel Hill wasn't exactly guaranteed.
My recruiting process was kind of crazy. I think Carolina was one of the only teams that kind of stuck around once I committed to UVA. I made it open that, I was committing to UVA, but, my options were still open. Everybody assumed that I was going to UVA. Carolina was really a basketball decision. I had planned on coming there and just playing basketball. I almost went out of high school to play basketball and, was advised to, go to Carolina. Well, not go to Carolina, but to go to college and, play, a couple years of college and improve my stock. Because at the time when coming out of high school, I was right out of the lottery, as far as the mock draft. So, I decided to go to Carolina because at the time, it came down to them being top 5 in football and basketball. Mm-hmm. And the plan was to really just to go to Carolina and redshirt in football and playing basketball. And just so happened Oscar Davenport gets hurt the 4th play of the first game. And it was like, okay, you still want a redshirt or do you want this opportunity of playing quarterback? And obviously it was, hey, let's play. And it was just, it went from there and, came out, didn't have a great year my freshman year in basketball, then end up being hurt my sophomore year. So, it's just a trickle-down effect of things that's happened. And then, college didn't go quite the way, they had planned as far as, getting in and out and, having the success that you would like to have. But at the end of the day, it all worked out the way it was supposed to.
Ron Curry with us here on the Reed's Jewelers pregame show as we send things down to Lee Pace for today's field report, brought to you by Breakthrough Physical Therapy, the choice in North Carolina for keeping you in the game of life. Lee, as the players break up into position groups down on the field, what do you see? Anything stick out to you?
Well, 2 things stand out, Dave. Number one is Yami Brown is here. Unfortunately, he's turned pro and is now with the Washington football team. Also, Hakeem Nicks is here. He's going to be honored later as a Kenan legend. He's here with his young son and enjoying mixing it up with the Tar Heels and the coaches. Taking a quick look at the offensive line, Joshua Izudu is dressed out. Brian Anderson is dressed out. We do not know how much they will play or whether they'll start. It's good to see Ja'Quarius Conley back on the field. He does have his left arm in a cast. Jay Bateman said that he actually put him out to play some in the second half last week to get a feel for playing with his left hand in essentially a boot, protected from an injury last week. Also, number 29, Storm Duck, is playing tonight. And with Day-Day Hollins out last week, I assume that we might well see the debut of Storm Duck for this season. A key part of the Tar Heels secondary. He's a guy that 2 years ago essentially took one side of the field away, so the Tar Heels are very anxious to get him back on the field.
All right, that's good stuff from Lee Pace down on the field in the Breakthrough Physical Therapy field report. We'll take a quick timeout and come back as Jones begins his 2-part conversation with the head coach of the Tar Heels, Mack Brown. That comes your way after this on the Reed's Jewelers pregame show from Learfield.
We've came a long way.
Reports indicate that Mack Brown is returning to Chapel Hill.
It hasn't been easy.
Now to growing concerns about coronavirus. George Floyd, Breonna Taylor.
Through every sprint and set, we fought. Through the naysayers, the doubters, and all the talking heads who wrote us off. Through every sweet victory.
Got it! Touchdown!
Joy celebration.
Touchdown, Carolina!
Through every shattered expectation. Disappointed in it. Just a few years ago, we were on the afterthought, brushed aside, a non-factor. Not anymore.
It was Conley. Oh, my goodness! It's intercepted. Cody Grimes. That's the ball, and he is into the end zone. Up and into the quarterback. Jump ball. Touchdown. And Mac Brown pouring it on.
We've came a long way, but this journey is just beginning.
Jewelers pregame show continues from Kenan Stadium. Virginia in town to take on the Tar Heels, and Jones is standing by with Coach Brown for this installment of the Continental Tire Coaches Corner, brought to you by Continental Tire, innovative technology, driving confidence. For a dealer near you, go to ContinentalTire.com.
Inside the Continental Tire Coaches Corner with the head coach of the Tar Heels, Mac Brown. Carolina preparing to host Virginia in the oldest rivalry in the South. And Coach, another big division matchup early in the season for your team. What have you seen this week from your guys as they have prepared for this key Coastal Division clash?
Jones, they're excited about this challenge tonight. This is a good team. It's our oldest rivalry. It's two teams that have great kids that live a lot alike. The two universities are so similar, and it's going to be a fun game because they're good. They've started out so well this year. They've dominated two opponents. They haven't just played them. It's the same team we played last year that came down to a fake punt at the end of the game where we were trying to win a 3-point game. So you've got to give them a lot of credit for what they've done. But our last two games with them have been very competitive coming down to the last drive. But I thought last year they were more physical than we were. And that's something that we've got to address tonight.
Coach, in the aftermath of the Georgia State win, you said you might be up all night trying to figure out how Carolina could be more consistent running the football. How has that process gone this week as you look for improvement in that area?
The guys are trying hard. We've had a tough deal with injuries with our offensive line. We've had Zudu banged up. We've had Brian Anderson banged up, and they haven't been able to practice a lot. They haven't been able to play, and that's two of our best players. So we just got to keep working. And in your third year, I've told the coaches, don't talk about injuries. Just talk about what we're doing well. So those offensive linemen have to just compete, and they've got to fight because Virginia's got 7 starters back from defense that we played against last year. They held us to 93 yards last year rushing, and we're not as good running the ball right now as we were last year. And we do know that part of it's those two great running backs. They had a lot of yards after contact, so we've just got to continue to get better.
Coach, Carolina has numerous talented young players, and we had the pleasure of seeing a lot of them on the field last week against Georgia State. How do you and your staff know when a player is ready to take a larger role for your team?
It's based on production, totally. That's what we've told the guys. You earn your right to play in practice, and then when you get in the game, if you don't produce, if you don't stir things up, if you don't make a difference, you're not going to continue to play. And it's harsh, but we take care of all of them off the field. We love all of them off the field. We want to have all of them graduate, and we want to help them extend themselves to a better life when they get out. But on Saturday, man, it's who can win the game. And there'll be 5 to 7 plays that make a difference in this ball game. And it's amazing. That's how hard this sport is, that we'll play for 3.5, 4 hours, and 5 to 7 plays will be what we'll look at the end of the game. We've told our guys, you be on the positive side of 5 to 7 of those plays, and we win the game.
You talk about confidence a lot and how important you feel that is to individuals and to the team in total. How do you try and foster confidence from the head coach position?
I tell them the truth. Life's about facts, and a lot of people don't want to hear it. Life's about self-evaluation. A lot of people don't want to do that. And I've always been harder on myself than anybody else. And that's what I want to teach our guys. You correct your own mistakes, You grow up. You don't sit and make excuses ever about anything, but take facts, and it's not an excuse if it's a fact, and you fix it. And we're not as confident a football team right now as we need to be. And that first week's game hurt us. Last year we knew we were going to win at the end of the year. We felt good going into games, and right now we've got to continue to grow, and this will be a huge part of that tonight.
Carolina and Virginia coming tonight in Kenan Stadium. We'll talk a little bit more about the Cavaliers a little later in our pregame show. Here are Carolina's starters on defense.
Ravo Hasek, McHenry, Illinois.
Miles Murphy, Greensboro, North Carolina, Dudley High School.
Tamari Fox, Louisville, Georgia.
Chris Collins, VA Finals.
Tamon Fox, Lawrenceville, Georgia.
Jeremiah Gimmel, Newton, Georgia.
Cedric Gray, Charlotte, North Carolina.
Jaquarius Conley, Dykesville, North Carolina.
Trey Morrison, Atlanta, Georgia.
Kyler McMichael, Atlanta, Georgia. Don Chapman, San Diego.
Tony Brown, 757, where the dog's at.
Kenan Moments, presented by the Campaign for Carolina, creating opportunities for more Tar Heels.
Football rivalries ebb and flow over the years. Certainly the Tar Heels' most bitter rival in the 1980s was Clemson. Then in the 90s, the University of Virginia became one of Carolina's most intense games. Carolina was coming off a 10-2 season in 1996 and was 3-0 when Virginia came to Kenan Stadium in late September 1997. Virginia spurted to a 20-3 lead, but early in the third quarter, a native of Virginia planted a dagger into the Cavaliers' hearts. Dre Bly, a sophomore from Chesapeake, ripped the ball from a Virginia receiver and sped 17 yards for a touchdown, igniting what would become a furious Tar Heel rally.
Here's Brooks under pressure, intercepted, Dre Bly, touchdown Carolina. Virginia made two mistakes on that play. The first one was throwing into coverage, but Aaron Brooks was under heavy rush. Nick, the second mistake was throwing it in Dre Bly's area.
Carolina dominated the second half and rolled to a 48-20 triumph, setting the table for an 11-1 season and number 4 national ranking, the high water marks in the Mack Brown 1.0 era. Fortunately for Carolina this week against Virginia, both Mack Brown and Dre Bly are still on the sidelines.
That is tonight's Kenan Moment, presented by the Campaign for Carolina, creating opportunities for more Tar Heels. Let's catch up with Virginia head coach Bronco Mendenhall, who's in his 6th season at Virginia. In the previous 4 years, Mendenhall has gone undefeated against the Tar Heels. Last year, the Cavs outscored Carolina 44-41, and the UVA head coach sees some carryover offensively from that Tar Heel team to this one.
Looks very similar with different personnel. The scheme is well thought out. It's very well coached. And I think, like every team every year, right, you learn about maybe the impact of losses personnel as you go versus different matchups. And the running game and the running backs from a year ago, the receivers from a year ago, the personnel was very strong, and I think it's still strong, but it is different, right? But the system is more similar than different than it was, which I think was the intent of your question.
Here are Carolina's starters on offense.
Gerard Johnson, Reesville, North Carolina. Ed Montley from Apopka, Florida.
William Barnes, Apopka High School, Go Hills.
Austin Richards, Philly. Marsh McKeithen, Barnwell, South Carolina.
Garrett Walston, New Hanover High School. Antoine Green, Rockledge, Florida. Josh Downs, Slimy Little Dude High School.
Emery Simmons, a.k.a. Zip Simmons.
Todd Chandler, Montgomery Bell Academy High School.
Sam Howell, Indian Trail, North Carolina.
Back in Kenan Stadium, it is the Reach Jewelers pregame show. Get to some scores here on the North Carolina Farm Bureau scoreboard in just a moment, but right now we're a little more than 15 minutes away from kickoff presented by Geico, and 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance. Student section packed once again behind the west end zone here in Kenan Stadium as the remainder of the fans begin to find their seats here for the South's oldest rivalry as we get things started here on the North Carolina Farm Bureau scoreboard. Helping you is what they do best. In the ACC, a pair of 7:30 games are about ready to get underway. Of course, there's our game, Carolina and Virginia. The other is Furman and North Carolina State. Some earlier finals from the ACC. West Virginia beats number 15 Virginia Tech 27-21. It's Michigan State thumping Miami and South Florida 38-17. Western Michigan surprises Pittsburgh 44-41. Syracuse thumps Albany 62-24. And BC beats Temple 28-3. Clemson and Georgia Tech were delayed for quite a while, right around halftime. And now with 8:49 left to play in the third quarter, Clemson leads Georgia Tech 7-3. The Jackets have the ball deep in their own territory, but the sixth-ranked team in the country only up 4 right now in Death Valley. Clemson 7, Georgia Tech 3. Another final to report, Wake Forest has bested Florida State 35-14 as the Demon Deacons move to 3-0 in the 2021 campaign. Over to top 25 action at the top of the pile today. Alabama tested in the swamp by Florida. The Gators closed to within 2 at 31-29 with 3:10 to play in the fourth quarter. Attempted a 2-point conversion, didn't get it, and so the final score from Gainesville, Alabama 31, Florida 29. Number 2, Georgia, off to an early 7-0 lead against South Carolina between the hedges. A little less than 3 minutes into that matchup. Oklahoma and Nebraska met up today in Norman, and the Sooners get the 23-16 win over the Cornhuskers. Iowa defeats Kent State 30-7. Number 7, Texas A&M shuts out New Mexico 34-0. It's Cincinnati 38, Indiana 24. Ohio State in the process of closing out Tulsa 41-20 Buckeyes with just over 90 seconds to play in the fourth quarter. Purdue falls at Notre Dame. The Irish beat the Boilermakers 27-13. Coastal Carolina with a win over Buffalo 28-25. And Michigan at the Big House beats Northern Illinois 63-10. That's a look at the North Carolina Farm Bureau scoreboard and those ACC scores brought to you by Lee's 24-hour towing, preferred hauler of Carolina football equipment. We've got to step aside for just a moment, but when we come back, Jones continues his two-part conversation with Coach Brown.
Man, that felt good. The tailgating, the fireworks, the fans, the atmosphere, singing the fight song and lighting that bell tower.
Carolina blue fly, the blue devil is a lie. MJ holla with them cool gray sailing roof to the sky. Need no introduction, all these Hall of Fame inductions. When you see us, wanna be us, all this high level production. Mac was gone, now we back. Roy be mean with the class. Hit the sideline when it's grind time 22nd, then we scrap. And this really is no cap. Running circles round these Urkels, we rage in the pit. Carolina, we lit. And
it's good to be back. Let's do it again.
upcoming ROTC coming on. And this time we invite you to join